Today I'm going to explain comps, how I come up with them, how we determine the value of a home or a list price if you're looking to sell. We all like to keep track of our home's value because for many of us, that's the biggest asset that we own. So regardless of whether we're looking to sell or not right now, we kind of want to know, what is it worth? I'm Jenny Ullman. I'm a realtor in Tucson, Arizona, and I know we've all been on those apps, Zillow and the like, and it tells you an estimate of your home's estimated value. And sometimes those estimated values are accurate, but sometimes they are way off. And why is that? Well, we don't know because they have a secret formula that they use and they won't tell us how they determine that price. What I can tell you is that they haven't been in your home, they haven't walked down that neighborhood, and they haven't been in the houses that they're using to determine the price of the home. But a realtor can do those things. So getting a comp from a realtor who can make those real apple-to-apple comparisons is always going to be the best way to go to determine the list price and the actual value of a home. What do I mean by a comp anyway? Well, a comp or a CMA are terms that realtors use a lot, and they both mean the same thing. Comp and CMA, comparative market analysis. So we are comparing houses that are similar to each other to determine, to analyze what the home's value is. And some people assume that the house that sold down the street gives you a good comp for your home. Well, it might, but it also might not. Why? Well, we're going to talk about that. First and most important thing maybe to put out there is, if I'm selling a home, why does it matter what we listed at if somebody's going to come and buy that house? Probably the most important thing to keep in mind is that most people buy homes with financing, meaning that they are taking out a home loan, and when they go to take out that home loan, the mortgage lender doesn't just give them the money. They have to apply and show credit worthiness, also send an appraiser to the home, and that appraiser is going to determine whether that house is worth the money that they're paying for it or not. If the appraiser comes back and says, no, the house isn't worth $500,000, it's worth $400,000, that lender will not give $500,000 in a loan. That lender will give $400,000 in a loan. And being that far off, I'm guessing that you're going to lose that contract. So being aware of that kind of looming appraisal that's going to come down the road is important, because you want your house to be presented to the appraiser where the appraiser says, yep, it's absolutely worth that contract price. So that's the biggest important thing to kind of keep in your mind if you're going to sell, having a list price that is going to appraise at that price. We can't fully determine everything, what a crazy appraiser may or may not say, but generally we have a good idea because they're going to use the same data that realtors have, not the secret formula that the apps use, but they're going to use things that are comps. They're going to pull sales. So let's talk through a few examples. Let's say I have a client who calls me and they want to determine a list price for their home. They have to sell, they have a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house, and the one down the street, by the way, just sold for $500,000, and they think that's a good comp, so they think their house should be $500,000 or more. Is that a good comp? Well, let's dig a little deeper. The first thing I am going to tell these clients is, hey, I can pull some basic data, but I really want to come see your house to make a determination of the value. I don't want to throw a number out there and say, oh yeah, I can get you that, when I don't know the condition of the home. It could be that those clients have done tremendous number of upgrades in the house and that price is too low. Or it could be that that house has not been well maintained and there's no way that it can carry that price. But also, I need to determine if that house truly is similar to the one that just sold down the street, and whether that one that just sold down the street is a comparable house. So let's say I go to these clients' home and they have a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house. It's 2,000 square feet. What else am I taking note of? Well, I'm going to take note of what upgrades they have or haven't done. What's their lot like? Do they have upgrades to the exterior of their home? What maintenance have they done, or have they deferred their maintenance? and I'm going to talk with them and find out from them what were the things that are special to them about that home. Are there some things that I might otherwise overlook that wouldn't show on the paper, but we can somehow capture within the value of the home? After I talk to them, I'm going to go and I'm going to pull that house that they told me about just down the street to look at it. And I pull that house and it comes up, sure, it sold for $500,000, but it was a 4-bedroom, 3-bath house and it was 2,400 square feet. Square footage is one of the biggest things that people tend to overlook in terms of sales price of house because it makes a big difference. What an appraiser is going to do and what realtors do is determine the price per square foot. So a house that sold at $500,000 for 2,400 square feet, that has an approximate square foot value of $208 per square foot. If you multiply that by my client's 2,000 square feet, you're going to get about $418,000 for that house. That 400 square feet of difference in the house made an $80,000 comp difference in price. But then I look at that comp a little more deeply. It not only is bigger by 400 square feet, which actually for me is outside of my parameters of comparable. It doesn't have a pool. It has a 3-car garage. It's 2 stories. They have a totally blown out newly redone kitchen, and my client's is pretty close to original. It doesn't seem very similar at all. Now, I'm going to take that, I'm going to set it aside, but I'm going to go and look for houses that truly are more similar to my clients. Yes, I would love to find one that was very similar within the neighborhood or more than one. So I'm going to be looking for things that are built around the same year. I'm going to be looking for things within a couple hundred square feet of my client's 2,000 square feet. I'm going to be looking for a single-story home with a pool, 2-car garage in a similar neighborhood that is geographically close by. Those are the first big factors I'm going to be looking for. And I go through, let's say I filter in the MLS and I find, okay, here's one that closed within the neighborhood that's pretty close and it has a pool, it has all those features. I'm going to take that one, I'm going to print it out, I'm going to set it to the side. I'm going to look for at least 2 others. And let's say I find one that's in a different neighborhood, but it's a half-mile away, seems pretty similar, and has some different features, but the basics of it are the same. It has a pool, 2-car garage, single story, about the same square footage. And I can't find anything else within that half-mile radius, so I'm going to stretch it out another half-mile, and I find another house that seems pretty similar, has those basic standard things, and I'm going to print that one out too. You have to realize that right now in this market, the supply is low. And what that means is sometimes finding a true comp can be difficult, because one of the things that appraisers look for is a house that has sold within the last 3 months. So let's say I find these comps and I look at them. The other feature I'm looking for is how long ago did that house close? A house that closed 6 months ago is not a good comp. We all know that 2 years ago it was a completely different environment for the housing market, and for appraisers' sake, they want something that has sold within the last 3 months. So if that house sold 4 months, 5 months, 6 months ago, I'm going to set it aside because this might feel like it'd be a completely different market. So I'm looking for things within the last 3 months. And because the housing supply is low right now, sometimes it's really hard to find. So I'm going to print those 3 up. I'm going to look at them. I'm going to look at their price per square foot. And I'm basically going to do, by going through the details of those houses, looking at the photos, looking at the agent notes, looking at some of the things as to seller repairs and concessions that might be noted in the MLS. And I'm going to use those to create a spreadsheet. This is a smaller version of the spreadsheet that I create. I have one that has more details. It's a full broker price opinion. It has a lot of the things, so I can compare and say, hey, my client's house is superior this way, or it's inferior this way, so I've got to bump down from this price per square foot or bump up from this price per square foot. And I'm going to look at the photos and say, man, you know, that house that sold for $525,000, It has a beautiful new kitchen, and my client's does not. So my client's is definitely going to be lower in value than that one. But if it looks like that kitchen remodel cost maybe $60,000, $70,000, does that mean I need to take $60,000 or $70,000 off the price of the home? No. It just means I have to notate that my client's home is going to be inferior in that way. It's definitely going to have a reduced value. But let me see the condition of these other homes' kitchens and whether they had been updated or not. And maybe I go through and I see, hey, nope, these other two kitchens hadn't been remodeled, but they still had a price per square foot that was actually fairly high. So I'm able to say, okay, I've got to reduce from that top notch comp and look at the other ones. And I might look and go through and say, hey, I think my client's is closest to the one on Elm Street. And maybe that one is similar in terms of its age. It seems to be fairly well maintained, but not upgraded. It has a similar beautiful backyard and a similar lot. So I really like that comp, and that's really where I'm going to be angling to say, okay, can I justify that list price? And I look at the other two and I say, yeah, it's superior to this other one on Abracadabra Street, and it's inferior to the one on Main Street. So it's really in the middle, like that Elm Street one. And I'm going to look at the price per square foot, and I'm going to say, okay, if I average out those three, since my client's house is about the average of those, if I average out that price per square foot and multiply it by 2,000 square feet, I come up with approximately $493,000 list price. And if I just take the exact price of the one on Elm Street, because my client's house is pretty similar to that, and I multiply that out by 2,000 square feet, that price per square foot yields me about $497,000 in list price. So they're pretty similar. I'm right about on target, and I'm going to take both of those things and all of that analysis, and then I'm going to go back to my client and I'm going to show them how I came up with this list price. We're kind of in this range, and then I'm going to talk to my clients to see what I need to capture in the list price that maybe I overlooked. If the clients are super motivated and have to sell quickly for some reason or another, we might shift down a tiny bit in order to make sure that we are attracting people quickly. Or they might say, you know what, we really love this neighborhood. We're not pressed for time. We really want to list closer to 500 because that's going to help us do something. So we figure out and make sure that we're all in a reasonable range of what the appraiser is going to come back and determine. Because guess what? That appraiser is going to do the same exact process. They are going to look for similar comps that have similar build, similar age, similar upgrades, and they're going to do a plus minus in the same way and determine price per square foot for that house. They're going to look for apples to apples comparisons, not apples to oranges. Something without a pool in the backyard is really hard to judge against something that does have a pool. Now, in a pinch, if there is nothing else similar to it, you might end up using that comp, but you also know you're a little bit more in squishy territory. So I make sure that those things are laid out for not only the appraiser to see when they come, but also for buyers when they come through the house, because comps are not just for people getting ready to list their home. They are for the buyers as well. No buyer wants to overpay for a house. They don't want to be the person who overpaid by $20,000 from what the house was valued at. They can rely on an appraiser to assign the value to a home, but they probably don't want to. And using and pulling comps before you make an offer on a listing is usually a pretty important thing to do as well. So comps are important, and you looking at them the same sort of way is important for listing as well as buying. Having to know the current market, what is going on. Are there a lot of buyers? Are there a lot of sellers? Is the market trending upward, downward? Again, other things that have to be taken into consideration. And as well as what actually things sold for, not just the price, but in those listing notes. Was it a distressed sale? Was the seller required to do $20,000 in repairs to the home? So even though it's sold for $500,000, if they came out $20,000 for repairs, really that feels more like a $480,000 value. that we're going to compare it to rather than 500,000. So those are the types of things that, again, appraisers are going to see and that you as the owner of the home want to know. So next time before you go to look to pull your estimate, if you really want to know, if you're really curious as to the value of your home, you're going to have to take into consideration these factors I talked about. Age of the home, size of the home, is it the same number of stories, does it have features that are similar? Or you can reach out to your local friendly Tucson realtor and ask them to run a comp for you. So that way you know, if you have to list your house in the next couple of months, what a pretty good starting value would be. So thank you for watching. I hope this was helpful. I would love your feedback about this, or if there is another type of informational video you would like to see. And if you need a comp for your house here in Tucson or the Southern Arizona area, give me a holler.